Let's bring in Republican Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, a member of the Committee on Foreign Relations. Always good to see you, Senator. Several boxes to check with you this morning. Let's start with North Korea. Do you believe this is the right approach to have with North Korea, the rhetoric from the president?
I think the right approach is to be strong, and that will have a deterrent effect, I believe. That certainly is what all of us hope for. Ronald Reagan said famously, you get peace through strength, and I think that's what Secretary Tillerson and Secretary Mattis and President Trump are all saying, is that should there be a preemptive strike by North Korea, the response will be swift, it will be forceful, and that should deter them, one would hope, from taking any actions against Guam or South Korea or Japan or certainly our shores.
So if, God forbid, something were to happen like what's being imagined, the president probably would not have to go to Congress for any power to act, because it would be in defense of the United States. But if it did become an issue, would you back the use of military force against North Korea if they sent a missile into waters near the U.S. territory of Guam?
Chris, we have to see what the North Koreans do, and we'd also want to work with our allies. I heard earlier some conversation about unilateral acts. We just got the United Nations to agree on a unanimous basis.
But you get why I'm asking, right? If they were to do what's being threatened, Senator, this talk has to lead somewhere, because otherwise you wind up getting hoisted on your own petard, so to speak. You wind up talking tough, like you're going to act, but then doing nothing. I'm not encouraging any military solution to the situation. Don't misunderstand me, but I'm just trying to follow through on the strategic thinking here. If you say you're going to hit me if I do something, and I do that thing, you then have to hit me to follow through on your talk. Is that something you'd be comfortable with?
Well, I think we do need to honor our red lines. And as you know, in the last administration, we failed to do that on occasion. And that had a tremendous effect, not just on our enemies, but also on our allies. And so I think we do have to follow through on our threats. And look, I think what has not worked over the past 8 years, and Chris, I would go beyond that. I would say what has not worked over the past few administrations is using hot rhetoric with North Korea and not taking action. And right now we have a situation where North Korea continues to export about $3 billion worth of goods, as an example. China continues to do business with them. Probably 80% of trade is with China. There are Chinese companies that provide dual technology to North Korea. Meaning it's technology that's used in the commercial sector, but also for the nuclear weapons program. There's a lot more to be done. And again, the step that North Korea took recently by threatening a U.S. territory escalates it, no question about it. But the UN sanctions also help escalate it from our point of view. It was a unanimous decision. It'll help tighten the sanctions. I think we should go further. We've got legislation to do that. As you know, it's bipartisan.
Right.
It's entitled Stop the North Korean Enablers, and China is the biggest enabler, and we can do more. The sanctions from the UN probably affect about $1 billion of the $3 billion. Let's broaden those sanctions. Let's be sure that we're using the U.S. financial system, which is our biggest leverage, to stop companies from places like China from doing business with North Korea, because they also want to do business with our financial institutions. So, Chris, I just think there's a lot more that can and should be done, and we should move quickly.
Absolutely, and that's why there's talk about, should you just be down that military track? Hopefully they're following a lot of different paths. We'll see what develops. There's something else I want to talk to you about. We have a documentary upcoming about the explosion of sex trafficking here in the United States, and not the way people think about it, where young girls are taken from abroad and shipped into the United States. There are estimates that as many as 70% of the victims in the U.S. are U.S. kids that are brought into what we familiarly see as prostitution, but it's way more than that now, across state lines, kids being taken all over. You see this problem, you want to attack it. How?
Chris, first, I appreciate you guys putting the spotlight on this. We've talked about it before, but tragically, we've had a big increase in sex trafficking, human trafficking. And all the experts who look at it come up with the same conclusion, which is that the internet is the reason. In other words, the dark side of the internet here is that groups like Backpage.com, which is, a website that we have investigated, are selling women and children online, and really doing it without any ability for prosecutors or the victims to be able to stop it. They have an immunity under federal law. That immunity is something that we are now looking at in terms of legislation. We've introduced very targeted, specific legislation to take away the immunity for entities that facilitate sex trafficking and do it knowingly, in other words, intentionally. And to me, this is the only way we're going to be able to slow this down and begin to turn the tide. So it's bipartisan. We have about 25, 28 co-sponsors now. It's something that I think we have to put into place to be able to allow the prosecutors at the state level and the federal level to go after these groups that are selling girls and women online. The exploitation continues, and also to let the victims get the justice that they deserve.
There's no question it's a 50-state problem. Kids as young as 10, and again, U.S. kids, American kids, being sold into basically
Absolutely.
the new slave trade. Senator, we're all over it. We have the documentary coming out this fall. Let us know what happens legislatively. We will stay on the story. Thanks for joining us on New Day.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. Always great to be on with you.
All right, be well, Senator. Brianna.